Hi, this is Doc Jones, the resource investor. I'm here with David Gower, the CEO of Emerita Resources. They recently just released the 43101 on the IBW project, and this 43101 is the initial one that is comprised of two of the three historical high-grade deposits on the property. All the deposits are still open, and they're continuing to press on. And I've asked David Gower to give us a little more color on the 43101, as well as where the company is heading now. Hi, David.
Hi, Doc. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Good.
Yeah. So what is the important aspects of the 43101?
Well, we've got a few slides that we put together that we used for our annual general meeting yesterday, just to try to articulate that. So if you bear with me, I'll scroll through some of these. I won't go line by line, but and my computer is locked up here. Oh, there we go. So just to let people know, I will be making some forward-looking statements, but we'll try to be as accurate as possible. So yeah, the Iberian Belt West, this is the initial resource. I think that has to be stressed. The deposits, both of them that we've drilled to date, are still not closed off, and then they're available for expansion by ongoing drilling, and we are drilling and achieving success, as you will see. The initial 43101 resource, as laid out by the QP, which was done by Wardle Armstrong, which are, an internationally recognized company and certainly one of the most experienced companies with respect to consulting with all of the operators in this region. So the resource is very strong. It's primarily indicated, 14.07 million tons with a 7.63% zinc equivalent grade. And that's based on a 3% zinc equivalent cutoff. The important thing to understand about the 3% zinc equivalent cutoff is particularly the Roman era deposit has significant portions of it that are quite enriched in gold. And because it's very unusual, and these are not metallurgical cutoffs, they're based on QP, the company's experience with other deposits in the area. They come up with these factors to calculate the zinc equivalent. But other deposits in this region do not have this high gold zone, and as a result, they didn't have an analogy that they could point to say, well, what might the recoveries be? As a result, in that zinc equivalent calculation, we're only getting credit for 20% recovery of the gold at this time until we do the metallurgy.
So just on a math side there, so they used 1,800 gold, so 1 gram would be $58, and the cutoff grade is 3% zinc equivalent, which is $86. So only getting credit for 20%, that means a zone would have to have 8 grams per ton for it to make cutoff.
Yes, assuming there wasn't some other base metal credits along with the gold, but that's math right. Sounds about right. Yes.
Yeah. So it's very, very conservative compared to other VMSs that are gold dominant. They're achieving much higher recoveries because their flow sheets are designed to optimize. Whereas in this area, you look at Sandfire or the Lundin's operations or Rio Tinto, they've never been optimized for the gold because it's 1/5 to 1/6 the grade that's being achieved here.
Yeah, in those operations, typically whatever precious metals they get into their copper concentrate or their lead concentrate, they will get some pay through the smelters. In a situation like this, where we've got areas that are running 3 to 5, even higher grams gold over in some cases 7 to 10 meters, those are very high gold grades for a VMS in my experience, and obviously the potential value requires that we look at how to unlock that. So The metallurgical tests that we are embarking on now certainly are going to focus on trying to improve on that number. And so hopefully later in the year, when that work is done, we'll be able to redo the zinc equivalent, and hopefully with a different outcome. Just to remind people, we are close to major producers. Neves-Corvo you mentioned, which is probably the most important mine in this region. Aguas Teñidas mine of Sandfire, Minas Las Cruces of First Quantum, and Rio Tinto, of course, of Atalaya. It's a good jurisdiction for mining. Communities are supportive, the government is supportive, and of course there have been movement within the European Union to secure domestic supply of critical metals as well. So the timing in terms of the business climate is very good. And as mentioned, I think in your introduction, there are 3 deposits on the property. We only drilled 2 at this point. So again, we're at IBW, or Iberian Belt West, near the Portuguese border. Neves-Corvo in Portugal, just across the border. The geology, of course, is the same. And then Aguas Teñidas in this area, the famous Rio Tinto mine of Atalaya. And Las Cruces, which is First Quantum's operation, is closer to Seville, which is over here. It's a great area in terms of infrastructure, paved roads, railways, ports. We have completed over 240 diamond drill holes on this property, most of them drilled since last July. So it's been a very frantic pace, I guess, with 15 drills through part of that time and 6 different drill contractors. You can see the original property, IBW property below, Romanera on the west side, La Infanta on the east side, about 6 to 8 kilometers apart. Infanta is quite long, so if you go to the western edge of it, it's about 6 kilometers to the eastern edge of Romanera. Alcura is the one deposit we don't have the historical drilling for, but we have seen references in the archives of the deposit there based on Rio Tinto's memos that we found. So we're just starting to drill that one now, and stay tuned. We'll hopefully have some results in the coming weeks.
Okay.
So the resource, as we mentioned, it's 14 million tons in the indicated category, 4.7 million tons in the inferred. The zinc equivalent grade of the indicated is 7.63%, and of the inferred is 9.3% or 9.29. The primary difference between the inferred and the grade of the inferred and the grade of the indicated is most of the indicated resource is in Romanera. And Infanta doesn't have the same gold grades. So much of the disproportionate amount of the inferred is at Infanta, where there's high base metal grades but relatively lower gold grades. So it doesn't suffer from this 20% gold recovery that we see with Romanera. So the process for doing this resource basically is you build a geological model with hard boundaries. You go through and of course you calculate the zinc equivalent so that you can populate that block model with grade. And the zinc equivalent is based on the zinc grade times the zinc recovery, lead grade times lead recovery, etc. And then divided by the total zinc recovery to convert all of those elements into one element, basically. It's a pretty standard calculation, and I think most people understand it. And then the price assumptions that are used are listed there that were used by the QP. So as you mentioned, Doc, at 1,800 gold per ounce, it's about $58, I think, per gram. So that's really the important thing. And so, Roman era itself, as mentioned, it's well drilled. The red is drilled to the density required for indicated resources in both the upper and lower lenses. The deposit is comprised of two lenses, and then the green around the edges is in the inferred category and at depth as well, where things are still open and very, very exciting drilling results coming from there. As you can see, hole 107 at depth 32 meters with very good grades, 0.4 copper, 3.6 lead, 8.2 zinc, and decent gold and silver grades as well, including some very much higher grades. Even this narrower intercept here will, it's 6.4% copper. So, and similarly, we spoke to hole 146. Assays should be in on this very soon. Total in the two zones of about 35 meters of what looked like very good grade massive sulfides. And you can kind of see this is a grade contour for lower zone that. So in this long section, the green falls below the cutoff grade. So as you were talking earlier, these areas of the deposit, even though they're drilled to a level that would be indicated resources, the grade is the zinc equivalent grade excludes them from the resource. Some of these tons, obviously with a 20% recovery in areas where there are lower base metals, may come back in if we can improve the gold recoveries.
Okay.
So that's important. We don't know at this point. We haven't done an analysis to see how much, right? But as you point out, if it's 3 or 4 grams gold and it's not making the cutoff, it could be quite valuable in the future if we can improve on those recoveries. And the other important thing, of course, with improving the recoveries, probably even more important than those tons coming in fact, is it increases the grade of every ton that has gold in it. So, which is, a lot of these areas just get, your margins go up. So in terms of, the overall project, getting another 1% zinc equivalent or more, it's very impactful on your margins. So that's really the objective of the metallurgy program that we're setting out on. And of course, this very large, so there's a relatively large sulfide body here, as we've talked, even with the historical resources there was, but only these parts of it that are orange and red and purple make it into the resource. The in situ resource here, when they calculated it, was about 20.7 million tons, based on the 3% cutoff of about 10.4, I believe, zinc equivalent. So those recovery factors, once you apply them, they do have quite a significant impact, obviously, on the project. And that number that I just gave you, I would just caution anybody listening that is not the 43-101 number. That is the number that came out of the calculation of the 43-101 number. You have to do an in situ resource to get to the end number. But I mention it because I'm going to refer to it again later in this slide deck.
Okay.
La Infanta, very similar. We've got this high-grade, well-drilled, indicated resource with the north and south blocks near surface, and then much wider space drilling. It's a very extensive system. The north, south, and south blocks are separated by what we believe is a thrust fault, and I think essentially that fault has attenuated this deposit. So and that's part of the reason we haven't done. Once we could drill Roman era, where we have very good thicknesses, you get a lot more benefit per drill hole when you can have 10+ meter thicknesses, whereas here some of these intercepts are only 1 to 3 meters, and however, to make it into the resource, they had to be 3 meters. So that was the cutoff for Infanta. It was the same zinc equivalent grade cutoff of 3%, but it also had to make the minimum 3 meter thickness. So it is being looked at least from the concept that it could possibly be mined. In terms of the sensitivity analysis for the resource, the real resource number, of course, is the one with the 3% cutoff grade, and the rest are calculated off of that. Essentially, by at a 4% cutoff grade, you eliminate blocks, obviously, in the model that are below 4% zinc equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not the same as if you did the resource at 4%, because the model is based on your composites in each drill hole that are really done to 3%. So, but it's a very good indication, and what it tells us is we don't see a huge drop in tonnage. We see, the expected increase in grade. That it's a well mineralized ore body. It's not a few very high grade zones carrying a bunch of much lesser material.
Right.
Typically, that means through your production profile, it should be reasonably predictable, and we do certainly have higher grade sections that will help if we choose to exploit them early. But by and large, it's a resource that does hold together. And this is the slide where I try to put this into perspective. So on the left are the operations in the region. So Lundin is currently investing around 480 million, I think it is, to develop their zinc zone at Neves-Corvo. It's a large zone, but it's very deep compared to us. Like I think they're close to 2 kilometers in depth. Their zinc equivalent grade, this is the in situ grade.
Right.
We didn't see their recoveries in the report that we looked at. And that's why I mentioned the in situ grade, because the one that I mentioned was essentially the same. I think ours was 10.4 or something like that. So, this is a project that is currently approved to be built. The zinc equivalent grade at Sandfire's operation, which again is, I believe now close to 1.5 kilometers deep, certainly more than 1 kilometer in places, is about 8.9. Combined, we're looking at something just over 8, but we're in that ballpark, and similarly with First Quantum's base metal zone. Now, this one is not built yet. They've done a feasibility, and I'm not sure what their plan is in terms of development. But we're basically in line with the producers. And then we look at some of the other projects that we've been compared to, certainly by analysts, et cetera. Foran in Canada, the tonnage is not that much bigger considering ours is growing. And I think, generally we're slightly better grade, but we're kind of in the ballpark, and this is their zinc equivalent recoverable grade. And of course, Adriatic, and if you look at the market caps of these companies relative to Emerita, which was 150, I think it's closer to 100 right now. This resource stacks up very well, but particularly because it's at surface. We're talking about resources, that are from essentially surface down to more or less 500 meters. So it's a very shallow system at this point. Sorry for jumping around, but
No, that's very helpful.
Really to just point out that the resource is continuing to improve. When the metallurgy comes in, hopefully it'll get better on that basis as well. And it's continuing to grow, and we are continuing to drill. In terms of next steps, of course, we continue to drill at Romanera, and we've started the drilling at Alcura. It's between these two deposits.
Mhm.
Historical information we've seen suggests it might be a little more copper rich, but we really can't comment until we start to see some drill information. But that hopefully will be an exciting outcome here in the next few months. And we should have the first hole through the zone sometime early next week. The big focus, of course, because we're seeing such nice high grades and thicknesses at depth on Romanera, will be to continue to step that deposit down. You know, if we can take the resource up to increase it by 50%, for example, that's a very good outcome for us in the coming months. And then, of course, the metallurgical work will go ahead, and we were planning to do multiple samples here. So we've hired a very senior metallurgist from SRK to act as our representative on the owner's team, and he will help with the design and all of the iterative sort of testing that is going to be done in the lab, because we don't have that expertise in-house. We've got geology covered pretty well. We know a bit about mining, but metallurgy, we really need that kind of specialized support. Mm-hmm. And I believe the actual test work will be done in the UK with Gordon Armstrong, because they've actually done the work for essentially all of the deposits in this area. So very, very well versed with how to deal with this type of material, other than the high gold grades, of course, are still a bit of a mystery, but hopefully we'll find a solution to that. Talked earlier about the business climate, and this is the kind of thing that's been in the news, and started probably 2 years ago with the Andalusia government planning to boost mining, but this has been reinforced again more recently. And of course, there have been movements by the European Union. They had released over a year ago a discussion about 3.2 billion euros for this region. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that funding is expected to be approved in the EU Parliament as part of a larger initiative that will address other critical areas of Europe, or other areas of Europe that could supply critical metals. And they've indicated that they want, you know, at least 10% of their supply of these metals to be domestic by 2030, and shortly thereafter they would like to see a higher percentage of that. So all of these things are positive in terms of, you know, the potential development in this region. And then, of course, we harken back to the infrastructure, because it's also very important in terms of your capital costs. So we have paved highways to the property. There are rails in the region. There's the deep water port at Huelva, where Traffic Euro still has concentrate handling facilities, so you can ship basically anywhere in the world that you want. Grid power, which is available, and for those that are focused on ESG issues, it's primarily renewable energy in this area. There's vast wind farms and solar farms, and of course there's even hydroelectric energy supplying the grid in this area. So it's a very good place from that perspective. Highly educated workforce, very literate. So that's also an important factor in terms of how well and easily we can operate. So that's really the update, Doc, in terms of where we are and where we're hoping to go in the coming months.
Yeah, there's really exciting stuff that I was thinking just moving forward, like as is. Let's say you just take the recoveries as they are. You look at it, and with the cutoff grade and the value of the ore, you're looking at on the indicated there, it's a margin of 61%. It's a very good margin. And then when you look at the indicated at Lanfanta at 14, a little over 14% zinc equivalent after recoveries, you're looking at like almost an 80% margin. So because at Lanfanta is at surface, and say a production scenario, could it be possible to where you stockpile the stuff from Lanfanta as the mill's being built and you run that 1,000,000 tons through first? Because I did the math on that at 365 days a year, 3,500 tons a day. Taking a 20% dilution, you end up with revenue of about 420 million, and then EBITDA of around 300 million for that year one, which would probably give this project a payback of 14 months, and then after that you go right into Romanera, and you've got high grade right at surface, nice wide sections, and that's only assuming a 20% recovery of gold. I just think the market's missed this. They've missed what it all means, right?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the production scenarios, obviously we haven't done the feasibility yet, but internally, or myself, I do see that sort of potential where you might take, particularly there's a section of Infanta that's very high grade, as well understood, I think, by everybody who's been following the story.
Yeah.
Initially, we thought about that as a nice bolt-on, should be a high NPV, low capital. But yes, it's something that we would certainly study, is whether that should come out first. And while the mill is being built, you could, because it's not a huge amount of tons, you could start to stockpile that and have that go through first. And also the development time for Romanero, because of the size of it, would be longer. So you're just going to need, much larger infrastructure in the Romanera mine. So it could potentially provide some early cash flow, but we haven't done the work yet. But that's something we're aware of for sure.
Oh, great. Yeah, we have looks like a minute and a half left on Zoom here. The gold recoveries have diminished the grade, but the in situ of those 18.8 million tons prior to using the recoveries, the QP, because the met isn't done, is about 11% zinc equivalent across both classes of the resource. So that's pretty much in line with the original estimate, and so I think that this is very good. We're almost out of time here. So Dave, I really appreciate you taking the time to go through this. I'd seen this at the AGM, and I think it was important for investors who didn't make that call that they get a chance to see this as well. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Yeah, well, thanks, Doc, and stay tuned. We are still drilling, and should be some good drill results coming out.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'll have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you.